Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lalantia Show. Today I have a guest, and I am doing it live this time. So I have Amanda Heisman joining me. For those of you who don't know me, I am Lalantia. I'm a psychic realm channeler and healer, and I work in the magical realm. So I work with dragons, unicorns, mermaids, fairies, all of the different magical beings, and help you to discover the truth of who you really truly are, to do that healing, to step into that magic of you. I help you to open your abilities and to really kind of find your purpose. So today I have Amanda joining me for the show to talk about intuitive eating. So Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, Liliantia. I'm happy to be here. I love watching, what you do online, and I love your work, and I love all things magical. And I love that the magical realms are always supporting our nourishment. So, yeah. So thanks for having me. I'm Amanda Heisman. I am a nourishment channel, an energy embodiment coach, and an intuitive eating teacher. So I help women create like a joyful and easy relationship with food, with body, and with self. Again, right? We've kind of lived in a society where we've gotten used to societal programming and cultural conditioning around our body and around our eating, which I really truly believe isn't natural, right? It's not the most conducive to our human physiology and our human spirit to operate under these social norms. So I help people move away from the energy of diet and restriction and into the universal energy of nourishment. And I do that through intuitive eating and kind of turning our gaze back inward, our questions back inward on ourselves, and recognizing our own power and our own sovereignty to nourish ourselves, and that we have that innate wisdom within that always knows what we need, what our physical body, what our vessel in this lifetime needs. So I can also channel the needs of the nourishment body. So I kind of like to both teach intuitive eating, but kind of bridge the gap a little bit, so to speak, while people are learning. So that through in a number of different ways. Organs, colors has a lot to do with the chakra system and which organs are spinning with their corresponding chakra. Hi, puppy. But yeah, that's a little bit about who I am and what I do. And I love puppies as well.
I was telling Amanda before, I'm like, my son's supposed to get home, the dogs are going to freak out, but we're just going to go for it. And what do you know? It happened. But it's okay. I let them out. They're all good now. They saw that it's not a stranger here. So, I thought this was perfect because I did my chakra workshop, or like I don't even remember what I called it, but I did a series of videos on the chakras last week or the week before. And this really came up a lot. And my belief is that we come here, we incarnate as humans, but we haven't necessarily always been humans. We have been other sorts of beings. So I have worked with incarnated mermaids. I've worked with incarnated fairies, or people who have been in past lives.
Right.
And what I see is that the nourishment that they need is a little bit different. The things that their body really craves may be different from person to person because the energy that they hold. So to me, this is really fascinating. And I don't know a lot about nutrition other than like the super obvious things. I'm vegan and that's what I was guided to do, but I don't necessarily feel like everyone has the same path.
Right. Well, I love, like, you just brought a cool piece into it, which is the past life piece and what we've incarnated as in past life and how that's affecting us right now. It's certainly true. That's something I'm not necessarily conscious of when I'm channeling for people, but I'm definitely conscious of the bio-individuality of each individual, what I call bio-individual, or the uniqueness that, each of us needs something a little different. Our bodies truly are unique. So what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for the next. And we're kind of hit on all sides with, again, society and cultural conditioning, and the nutrition industry in general. It's just kind of a shit show, excuse my French. But it really is about, there are some grand universal truths for human bodies, right? Like I call them the big five. Like most of us do really well with adequate water, fruits and vegetables, sleep, movement, preferably in nature, and love in our lives, and gratitude and affection and love. Like humans, bodies and spirits do really well with adequate amounts of those things. And then there's some things maybe that we don't do so well with. And there's a whole bunch in the middle that's up for exploration. It's a grand adventure. You know, we're just researchers trying to explore what works for us. So,
right.
yeah.
So when you start teaching someone to, listen to your intuition regarding eating, what are some of the methods that you teach people that you start with?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on where the individual is at in their journey, of course.
Right.
But there's a number of different methods, and that can be from just starting really basic to mindful eating and mindful practices, right? I mean, really like things that we all kind of know, but we don't necessarily put into practice all the time, right? Like chewing our food adequately, like sitting and having a meal at the table, rather than behind a screen or behind a steering wheel or wherever we eat, um, things like that. And just, expressing gratitude or saying grace, whether before or after, but recognizing that a lot of people went into this meal, a lot of effort, a lot of love and work, whether it was the farmers or the plants, the animals, everything that had to go into that meal. So there's mindful eating exercises like that. That's a great place to start. If I were to take it a level deeper, I would talk a little bit more about like eating by color, like recognizing which chakra you need to nourish. If you're familiar with the chakra and the energy systems in the body, the universal energy, eating by color is a great place to start to kind of know what you need to nourish, or getting familiar with when you feel like you might need, protein, or when you might need fruits and vegetables, and when you might need, a healthy carbohydrate, or stuff like that. I also do other methods. We do a lot of journal work. We do a lot of we do embodiment as well, which is something, I have several what I call intuitive eating mantras, or nourishment mantras, which I call them mantras as opposed to affirmations, because they're kind of my answer to these unconscious things we just live with, these beliefs that kind of we've accepted societally around food and bodies. So things like, I'm open to new ideas of nourishment, things that kind of invite us to kind of take off what we think we've learned and put on a beginner's mind and heart. I'm replacing judgment with curiosity. I'm kind to myself and appreciate my process. I celebrate my progress. Anything I choose or don't choose is simply research. Doesn't that take the pressure off, I recognize the innate wisdom of the divine in me, and I'm sovereign to nourish my body. So that would be another layer of how we start to recognize our own power and sovereignty, and get more and more in touch with eating intuitively. And lately, I've brought in shamanic nourishment journeying to kind of dive past the conscious mind and into the subconscious around eating and food. I forgot to say with the last layer that we sing and dance as well to those mantras. So that's where the embodiment piece comes in. I'm big on singing and dancing and movement to kind of, it's a full body nourishment we're talking about. And so then with the shamanic journeys, that's what I do in my private work, in my one-to-one work, and I'm actually bringing it into the group work for the first time now, recently, with my upcoming program. And that's a great way to meet what I call your nourishment goddess, which is kind of your higher self meets your physical body. and recognize that wisdom within you that knows what you need for nourishment. So we give her a name and a face and an aspect of yourself. She kind of lives within you, and we go journey with her using shamanic journey, like ancient shamanic journeying practices. So
Right.
that was a lot, but that's kind of like 3 different levels of how I kind of tap into intuitive eating with my clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, and I do journaling with my clients too. So it's just like different ways of doing things and different focus on things.
Mhm.
I know for me, when I went vegan, I'm not like I I really dislike cooking.
Yeah.
Like I really dislike cooking,
Yeah.
and I'm not a big raw person. So for me, it was really a kind of discovery of what would work for me because I didn't want to cook very much or explore too much with cooking. It just never was attractive to me. I don't like standing in the kitchen cooking. But I found, the ways that work for me. And then I
Yeah.
do a lot of smoothies and juicing so that I make sure I'm getting a variety of foods. But
Mhm.
I know that when I go and I'm buying my vegetables and my fruits too, that I'm focusing a lot on getting a variety of colors. And there are times when I'm focusing maybe on one color a little bit more because I know I'm working on that chakra. But
Mhm.
for the most part, it's just getting a variety of things to make sure I'm kind of getting a good range.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know people who muscle test in the grocery store for different veggies and different, supplements or foods or whatever they're doing. But you said something I'll add something to is I never used to like to cook in my like 20s and early 30s. I thought I was like it was honestly a kind of a big inside joke between my family and friends when I became a health coach because they were like, "What, Amanda in the kitchen?" I was always the one who showed up with like burnt brownies or a box of pizza or whatever to the potluck. So it was quite an adventure when I first started out to really learn to love it, and also and not everyone has to learn to love it, but that was my path. And for it to become more of a creative endeavor for me, and more of a when I'm in the kitchen chopping vegetables, it becomes more of like this mindfulness, this meditation almost. And then it's like, ooh, what am I going to create? What colors are going to come into this? It's more of an artistry now, and along with what I'm feeling about what's nourishing me. But then it was definitely just a hassle and I didn't enjoy it. And I burnt so many things. And on this adventure, like towards nourishment and eating healthier, I can't tell you the amount of kitchen fails, Pinterest fails, if you will, that I've had.
What I have found is that, like, I get that, the adding the creativity to it. And usually, like, when I'm cooking for myself, it's just me. Like, I don't even, there's no, like, who cares is kind of how I feel. Like, it's just whip something up because I got to eat something. And yeah, I want it to taste good. But when I'm cooking for other people, and especially because I'm vegan, I want other people to see that you can have a good vegan meal and it's not like it tastes good.
It's amazing.
Like, yeah, and you can get pretty much everything you need from eating vegan.
Yeah.
And so when I have that and I want to cook for family or friends who come over or whatever, that is when I really find, kind of finding more creativity, creating these things that that I don't normally do on my own because it's too much work.
It's that vitamin L phenomenon, I call it, the love, right? Like you want to love language of food and like just gathering around with people that you love. It's something special.
It is.
Yeah, but it's also really fun to introduce people to eating healthier or vegan. I still eat some I was vegan for a while. I eat some animal products now, well sourced and well appreciated for their sacrifice animal products. But I'm probably about 90% vegan, and I love sharing that with people who come over of different ways to, outside of the box to nourish yourself.
Right. Yeah. And I do like that you made that point that when you do have meat, that you know where it's coming from. It's not coming from a factory farm.
Right.
You're paying attention that you know that it was, raised properly, humanely killed, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially here in the States, that's a big one. I find that when I travel, it's just more the norm in other countries for it to be easier to get healthy, well-raised, humanely sourced animal products. But yeah, I don't support the mainstream meat or dairy industry. And this is another fun thing about my time in Canada is that there's a whole, we don't necessarily have to get into the whole, to kill or not to kill animals, but I did appreciate the way in which they chose to hunt and gather. It was every land animal that we were eating was like Uncle Lyle shot it, went on a hunting trip, and there's a lot more reverence. Or like the farm 2 doors down was offering up some of their bison, or something like that. There was a lot more reverence for the life of the animal, and just an appreciation, almost like a gratitude for that sacrifice. It was really apparent, and the meat was fresh, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like they held on to more of the native traditions of doing things.
The indigenous traditions, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Let's look at comments. Do you guys have any questions? So, hello, Denise. Hi, Dee. Dee says hello again. Lelanti, and hello, Amanda. Nice to see you.
Chanel. Love singing and dancing. Whoop, whoop. Me too.
Chanel says, I struggle a lot around food. I find it hard to find the right things for me. I don't eat a lot. What would you say to that when people have a hard time finding things that they like?
Yeah, I would say first of all, come do like a mini free nourishment reading with me, and we can find some things for you individually. And right now, actually, I'm doing a shaman, like a free thing all week where we get in touch with your inner nourishment goddess. And the reason I'm talking about these things might seem a little off subject, but it's actually going to the root of your inner wisdom, right? Of knowing what are the right things for you. So if you come on over to my Facebook page, Amanda Heisman, all week you'll see day 1, day 2, day 3, we're doing nourishment journeys where you take like a 15, 20-minute, it's kind of like a guided meditation, but you enter an altered state of consciousness and meet your nourishment goddess who will tell you what are the right things for you. In the meantime, if you want to say more about it, Chanel, we can unpack it a little bit. But I would experiment with like instead of looking for the right things, what just do you like to eat right now? What do you enjoy? Like what's pleasurable? What fruit, what vegetable, what seed, what grain, like makes you happy? And just start there and just, see what comes up from there.
That actually brings up a question for me, and I thought of this before. How do you tell when it's just a craving, like when we crave chocolate or we crave, things that aren't good for us? We know that those are things that we're just craving. Yeah. So what is the difference between a craving and when we really need something? Why do we get cravings for things that aren't good for us?
Wonderful question. So a craving is always telling you that you need something. We just associate, like our brain just answers it with something that we know to be familiar, right? So there might be an alternate way to get that. So in my intuitive eating program, I actually have a whole module on deconstructing a craving and like the 8 causes of cravings and deconstructing a craving. But for a mini glance at that, I would say it's important to kind of break it down in a sense of just kind of take a moment, take a breath before you just run for the 7-Eleven or whatever, and think about, okay, what is it about this craving that I'm actually craving? If you're craving ice cream, are you craving sweetness? Like, are you having a sugar craving? Are you craving cold? your body's overheated and you need to cool down, and you could do that in a different way, right? You could have some iced tea or something. Are you craving like a creamy sort of comfort thing? You know, it's like kind of breaking down the different aspects of it is helpful. Your run-of-the-mill sugar craving is usually a nutrient deficiency. So sometimes you can get good at, like I usually see magnesium and zinc deficiencies are really, really common. Both of them are super common, especially in women, and both of them do a lot within the body. So a lot of times we'll start there, and that'll clear up a lot of cravings. Chocolate, you might be craving antioxidants, you might be craving magnesium, and actually well-sourced chocolate is a superfood, right? Cacao. There's a difference between going to, getting Ariba cacao from the Amazon, that sort of high grade powder or paste, and kind of making your own chocolate, or getting a high grade, like a nice dark chocolate bar or something. And you take it home and you have a nourishing experience with it. You put it on your fine china and have a nice cup of tea, and like really that's a nourishing experience, right? Like that's you can feel how that's different than going to the gas station, grabbing a Butterfinger and a Snickers bars, and like in your car just kind of and then hiding the wrappers because you feel guilty. You can feel the energy of that being very different. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but does that kind of help with the craving question?
It does. And I do want to add, before I was vegan, I was vegetarian. That meant that I still had milk products and I still had milk chocolate. And that was actually pretty much the only reason I wasn't vegan when I was vegetarian, because I loved milk chocolate and I didn't like dark chocolate at all. So when I switched and I said, I can't do this anymore. I like vegan is the path for me. Like no more milk. And I started eating dark chocolate. It took a little bit of an adjustment, especially since I get like the super healthy ones, like you were talking about, the ones that are the real deal. They're not packed with all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. And if you have it before sugar's been added, it's not a candy bar, right? It's super bitter.
Yeah, it tastes very, very different. And you just need a tiny, for me anyways, just having a little tiny piece. Yeah. And that is just enough. And it gets, now I don't really get, I suppose I get sugar cravings sometimes, but I don't really eat much sugar. So I don't know that it's really a sugar craving anymore. But before it was always this, like I needed chocolate. I need chocolate. Yeah. And then when I switched to being vegan a few years ago, then that craving went away.
Right.
And sometimes I just want, a little bit of dark chocolate. And you still have to be really careful, because sometimes you have to make sure you find the brands that are really vegan, that really don't have stuff added. Like some of them look really healthy. They're at the health food store, but you got to read those labels. It's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely it is. They can sneak dairy and sugar into anything. And there are, you can make your own coconut oil or coconut butter and cacao and well-sourced local honey or coconut nectar for a sweetener, and just melt it all and make your own little chocolate bars. It's super easy. You can add whatever superfood powders you want, and you can kind of control that. There's no dairy and there's limited sugar, and the amounts that there are sourced from, the flowers, the bees, or the coconut, and it's right. It's nice. You said something else about the chocolate that I was going to hit on cravings, but so there's also like a yin yang aspect to food, right? So there's like when you're cutting out animal products, which are primarily yang, you're like depleting your yang of your food intake, right? And so you might start to crave, like, this is why you might crave like chocolate, or you might crave coffee, or like when people give up coffee, they might eat more meat, your body's always looking to come back into homeostasis. Right. And with the sugar cravings, a lot of times when people add sweet vegetables like sweet potatoes, or they add really dark, rich, those like really dark leafy greens, those kind of reduce sugar cravings as well, especially the bitter greens like mustard greens or shards, stuff like that, because collards, because that actually changes the palate. And we're very accustomed in the West to over-salted and over-sweet, like over-sugared. And so when we get accustomed with the more bitter and the sour and the other tastes that there are, it kind of balances it out, and we're not like looking for those super salty, super sweet foods anymore.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I found that I don't add a lot of, like, I know when you're cooking, you usually add things, you know, that have that, how do I explain it? Basically what I'm saying is I don't add a lot of seasoning to when I'm cooking food. It's the food itself that is the seasoning. It's not, I'll add a little bit of salt, but I don't like pepper. And sometimes I'll add salsa because like it's like the healthier salsa. They don't have a bunch of stuff added to. But before it was like when you get used to eating processed foods, then the other like real food tasted kind of plain. It seemed like now it doesn't at all.
Right, exactly. You come to appreciate the actual taste profile in each food.
What the food actually tastes like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dee says things have changed a lot, but as I've been cutting things out of my diet, I've been struggling to find satisfying substitutes to put back in.
Yeah, if she wants to get more specific. So interesting.
It's like I kind of know some of her story, but yeah, I don't know enough about that one.
I'm with you on that, Amanda. The cycle of life, honor the being. Hardly eat meat anymore. Stomach doesn't tolerate it. Body has other plans. I don't think I'd be 100% veggie. I just don't know how to sustain myself with just vegetables.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, if there's specific things you're thinking about, Dee, feel free to drop them in, and I can suggest some healthy substitutes. A lot of times it's a brand new, like a lot of times when we're first coming off, you know, there's all those products out there that are like the fake hot dogs and the fake burgers and the whatever. And there can be some really good lentil burgers and sweet potato burgers and things like that. But in general, I find I make brand new things that aren't meant to be like anything else, if that makes sense. Right? With a full nutrient profile, and I'm not just trying to tit for tat sort of thing replace because a lot of the replacement products have a lot of different sort of fillers in them, and then getting into doing that at home can be almost exhausting. Although, on the exception, I do make a really mean walnut taco that's to die for. It's really easy.
Well, and I think that you can make all kinds of versions of tacos and foods like that are, I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, you can do that with burgers too. There's some like things you can make into a sort of.
Yeah, there's delicious stuff. It's just, instead of just trying to replace everything, it's kind of like, okay, well, what if it doesn't have to look like this, you know?
Yeah. I agree with that. Someone had mentioned the cost. I don't remember who said it now, but someone mentioned the cost, the price of eating healthy. So I know there are some other options, but like you travel all over and you probably know how things are in different places. So do you have some ideas for ways of getting healthy foods that is cost effective?
Yeah, I actually have. Years ago, I did a free series on my YouTube channel about ways to eat healthy on a budget. I was on government assistance at one point. I was like super trying to figure it out, working a bunch of part-time jobs. So I get it. And but there's ways that you can really nourish yourself really well on limited funds. I would also invite, I mean, I get that things can be super tight. I would also invite us to just kind of like reframe it a little bit in the sense of, you've probably heard, if you don't pay now, you're going to pay later sort of thing. If we don't nourish ourselves really well up front, we're going to have to pay in healthcare costs later, and not just the monetary costs of healthcare, but the quality of life cost, right? Of not having a full and energetic life. I mean, one of the number one things that I talk about, that the feedback I get, and the thing I've experienced with my own self is we don't like realize how good we're meant to feel until we start feeling that way. And then when we start feeling that way, we kind of take it for granted and don't remember how far we've come. A lot of us, myself included, you know, I got really accustomed to just living with that 25 extra pounds, to just having headaches every day, to just, you know, have like being addicted to sugar, to just dealing with brain fog all the time. These things that we just kind of accept as normal conditions, or we attribute it to aging or whatever, that actually I don't think we're meant to live. I don't believe we're meant to live like that. I think we're meant to live really vital, vibrant lives. And so that's my little spiel on that. But I definitely invite you to take a look at my YouTube channel, because I have some really tangible tips about that. Stuff like I get specific with grocery lists and ways to kind of fudge stuff. And also the Dirty Dozen is a list out there if you haven't heard of that. If you can't afford to buy all organic all the time, there's a top dozen of these are the worst, the fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticides per square inch on them. And so those are the ones you like definitely want to buy organic. And then there's some that you can kind of get away with getting standard produce, like if a banana has a peel, you know, you're not going to have as much. Getting in touch with your local farms and gardens and kind of growing some of your own produce is really cost effective. So I know you have some ideas, Candace. What were some of yours?
Yeah, here we have on the weekends we have markets. So it's local farms, basically what you said, but you can go down there and you can get pretty much anything, and it's much cheaper. Sometimes if you go later in the day, then you can get, they just want to get rid of stuff, like they don't want to bring it back. So you can get stuff, you know, really, really cheap. And one thing to think about too is like, are you buying a coffee every day? How much you spend on that coffee? Would it be better to use that money on, you know, healthier foods? I get a coffee sometimes, but I'm also getting a decaf coffee, and it's not full of sugar or anything. But it's also, I've actually switched out my coffees that I was getting before to getting these elixir drinks that I found, which I was going to message you a picture of and ask you your opinion on the ingredients, but we'll do that later. But you know, finding these different options instead. So it is kind of switching it out. Instead of getting that coffee, getting that elixir drink, which to me, it tastes just as good or even better. It's healthier for me. Like the decaf coffee doesn't have anything except like it tastes good.
It's kind of considering what you're saying. What I'm hearing is like considering each time you eat or drink something, how much nourishment, how many nutrients can I get in my body? Like, don't have what they call empty calories. I'm not a big calorie counter, but don't have empty, like a nutrient profile of nothingness when you could have XYZ sort of thing.
Yeah. And even just other things that we may be spending our money on that we don't necessarily need. I guess I think about that. Like for me, when I go to buy something, I believe in buying something if it brings you joy. I mean, obviously kind of depending on the situation and all of that, but if it really brings you joy. So when you go to buy something and you look at it, you say, like you're shopping for clothes, you buy the clothes that really make you really excited. Not this is on sale, so I'm going to buy it because I really need another shirt. You buy it makes you really excited and really happy, and maybe you're buying less clothing, but you're buying clothes that you really, really like and that aren't just going to sit in your closet. And then that money that maybe you didn't spend on clothes can go towards that. It's just kind of switching the money around and paying attention to making sure that you're getting things that really make you happy, make you feel healthier. Really paying attention. It's just like living mindfully really is what it kind of is.
knowing your priorities. Like, it's important for me to know my priorities and then invest accordingly. And you kind of hit on, I mean, I bless the money going in, like going out and coming in. Like, I bless it no matter where it's going. It's going to potentially help nourish someone else, and someone else is helping to nourish me. And we're just spinning on this rock together, and
Exactly. Another thing that we have here, and I don't know if other places have, I'm sure that some places do, but the elementary school, at least the elementary school, I don't know about the older schools, but they have a program, and you don't have to be on any sort of government assistance, but I get an email where they have food, and it oftentimes is, I don't go anymore because I found that the produce wasn't organic, and for me that was really important and stuff. But they have kind of what is the leftovers, the stuff that the grocery stores didn't sell. So it goes to the school, and then the school gives it to people who are in need.
Yeah.
So
there are different things like that out there that if you kind of poke around, you can find stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know in the city, and I don't it's not worth it for me to drive deep into Portland, but there is places in Portland, and I'm sure other cities have the same thing, where it's can't think of what it's called, but it's kind of like a trade type thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you grow your own stuff, and I think you can go in there, bring it in the stuff that you grow, and maybe trade it with other people. It's
like a co-op sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like a co-op. Yeah, and there's different ways of doing it. Like, if you don't have anything, then you go in there and you're just paying a lot. I think it's a lot less. I haven't gone. So yeah. But it's mostly people who have like backyard gardens and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, especially as sometimes you have more eggplants than you know what to do with. Like, and then other things you're like, where did my tomato plant go? I know the gardeners can relate. Like, so yeah.
I think it does help, like, if you're in a city, because those are near a city, because there are a lot more options in that way. But if you're in the country, then you have more space, or in a smaller town, then you probably have more space to actually grow stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So there is one more question. Chanel said, so I have to have B12 injections three times monthly, I think is what she means. Where could I get that in food?
Yeah, B12. Yeah, a lot of times when you're reducing your animal protein, we lack B12. So nutritional yeast is a nice one of what I have a array of what I call nutritional sprinkles. It's a nice one that has a sprinkling effect on your salads, on your, on whatever, your sandwiches, on your foodibles. That has a lot of spectrum of B vitamins, but a lot of B6 and 12 especially, which are important vitamins. And a lot of dark leafy greens, like a lot of chard, collards, things like that, again. And you can saute them up really nice, or just have them in your salad bowls.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, I'm not very good with my dark leafy greens.
Yeah, kind of those strong ones. A lot of us are familiar with like the romaine and the iceberg and the kind of standard ones, but those like strong, I call them gorilla greens.
That's a good name. So I think that our time is about up. Therese, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, says lots of water is magic. Totally agree. We need to make sure that we hydrate for everything properly.
Yeah, it's absolutely magic. Lots of water. A lot of us are walking around dehydrated. And not only it helps us do physically everything that we do, but spiritually it's really important. It's really important, like when we're trying to emulate the qualities of water and go with the flow, it's important to drink a lot of water for sure. Well sourced water.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's kind of hard to get good water here, and for me it's important to not buy bottled water because of the plastic. And finding well water is for me it's my best bet, I guess, for getting good water.
There's a findaspring.org, which is a nice one for the Americans and Canadians out here. They'll have clean sourced springs where you can just bring your own jug and fill up.
cool. Yeah, I didn't even know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Denise says, thank you for this, lady. Such great information. You're so welcome. Denise says the water in Arizona is awful. I don't think I drank any of the water in Arizona, but I know that we were talking about it too, I'm pretty sure. So Chanel says New Zealand water is pretty good. Yeah, I bet it is. You guys probably have a lot of good springs out there.
That's incredible.
So,
it's been so nice jamming with you. Thanks for having me on, and thanks everyone. If we missed any comments, I'll come back and look in the comments and answer questions. But you guys can find me at heismanhealth.com is my website. Amanda Heisman on Facebook and Instagram, and I have a free Facebook group called Intuitive Eating for Energy. And if anyone's interested in unleashing your own inner nourishment goddess, that group program is starting in 2 weeks on June 18th, and I'm happy to chat with you further about that. It'll be a lot of fun using that nourishment journey, that shamanic nourishment journey, to go within and get in touch with our innate inner wisdom around food.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the free thing that you're doing right now too is amazing. So
yeah, we're in the middle of that. Come on over.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, Amanda, for being here, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.